Perfect. Cool. Okay. 1 second. I'll just set this up. All right. So I hope everybody can see uh, the place. Sorry, everybody can see the screen.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, so guys, as we get started, few rules. Though the first one is really not right over here because all of you guys are already on mute, but I would want you to unmute at some point in time and ask questions. As I said, this session is for you. Make the most of it. Ask as many questions as you want and related to whatever topic that you feel appropriate for today. All right. Okay, so what will we talk about today? First off, I think we will spend some time talking about how are we feeling about the current situation because these are not normal times, right? And each one of us has a different way of looking at things, and there's a different way how we might think of the situation. So it's very important for us to get in touch with that and see how are we feeling. Okay. Second, we will focus on how will we make the most of where we are, because I understand, you are in you're getting into your second year, and you'll have your placements coming up. So how will we make the most of where we are? Your internships have been different this year, so we'll talk about that. Then we'll dwell a little deeper from the placements perspective. How are we feeling about that? And how will we prepare for the placements? Okay. So this is what I'll cover, and then we'll go into any further questions on this. All right. Now, why is this important? Why is this agenda really laid out the way it is? Because success is not a linear thing. It is usually all jumbled up, and then you kind of head uh, in your direction of success. So it's very important. So even if the COVID scenario was not there, and if it was normal times, each one of us will take a different journey, and it's perfectly fine. Maybe now it might take a little longer, but it will happen. So the important thing is that not get offset by any of the changes or the deviations that are coming back, but keeping our focus through, right? The other diagram that you see is on the 5 steps of change. Now, we've all be, we're all on this journey to be better versions of ourselves, whether it be for life in general, or from a career perspective, or from another perspective of placements, whatever it may be, right? The first step is building that awareness of how are we feeling about it and where are we. Then comes building the desire, really, the desire to do something different. And then you add your knowledge, your action, and perseverance towards getting to wherever you are. So these are some of the reasons why it's important to talk about the things that we are touching upon today, so that in the long run it's a fairly aware journey from you, and not an unaware journey that happens, right? So where are we today? This is what you see over here is the usual course that most of us take when we're doing our MBAs or our masters. This is how it usually pans out, but this is not normal times. And we've had different things happen. You've probably had a virtual summer, which would have been new for most of us. So as organizations, it was new for us to really ensure that we're able to give students the same kind of an experience. As students also, this was the first time you worked in a pure virtual environment. um, so it was a lot of new stuff happening. So it's important, how do we really look at these summers experiences and how do we maximize that, right? Your year two, which would have started probably earlier, might be starting a little later, right? So the time that you would have had for placements and the time you would have had to study up on your concepts in the second year has gone reduced, right? Now, while that happens, there will be another change which will be coming, right? The placements that you would have will be virtual placements this year, and that's very likely to happen. Uh, so, in all of these changes, how do we really navigate the new environment that we are in? And today, where are we? We would be somewhere over here where, we're starting out our year two and our placements will happen here, right? So I want to take a little pause over here, okay? And I want to really ask you, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen over here, and it'll be great if you guys could come off mute right now and log in here to say that, how are these changes making you feel? uh, I'll be happy to just hear from you some of the thoughts that in your mind. How do you feel about this scenario you're in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So anyone? Yeah. Yes, Akash.
Now, what I think is like I'm skeptical what will happen, because right now there is so much uncertainty that even we don't know what kind of placement we'll be getting, or even the companies will be coming or not. Because we was hearing that a lot of people uh, are not getting jobs, like they are being fired. So there are people, these people who are getting fired, they are actually experienced people, and we are freshers. So if a company has an option of hiring experienced and fresher, they have so many experienced people already in the market. Why would they hire a fresher?
Hmm. 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 So cool. Thank you, Akash. So guys, in the chat window, what I started to do was write down the kind of words that Akash mentioned, about uncertainty. There's a bit of skepticism. Okay, I got the spelling wrong there, but yeah, skepticism and job losses, right? Those are some of the things that are coming up, and those are very relevant feelings and questions and thoughts to have at this point in time. Would anybody like to add anything to this? And thank you, Akash, for sharing. Thank
Thank you,
you.
ma'am.
Okay. Anybody else? Nope. Okay. Cool. Roshali, would you want to add something to it?
Um.
Yeah, hi Roshali, Shuchi this side.
Yes.
I'm
Hi,
sorry
Ashwin.
to
Yeah.
budge in right now. I just have a question.
Yeah.
Hi Kiran. So I'm the L&D head of the institute, but very important question here. And I have been getting this question from some of the students also. Maybe they are too shy to ask
Yeah.
over here. But it's like as if because of the lockdown, the classes have gone online,
Hmm.
and we feel a pressure from the students point of view. They feel that everyone feels that they have a lot of time in their hand now since they're sitting at home, and a lot of time is being saved in traveling, and maybe it is up to them whether they attend classes or not. That kind of laid back attitude we might assume the student has taken in. So
Hmm.
maybe this time should be used to do certain extra courses online
Okay.
and get some extra qualification or a skill which will add on to their resumes, right?
Okay.
Which makes them seem as if they have an extra skill that they've acquired. So
Okay.
to justify that this extra time that they have, is it fair? Is it like they should feel this extra pressure on them to be
Hmm.
utilizing this time more, right? So
Yeah.
how do you justify this? So maybe if you can address it from industry point of view.
Sure. That's a very good question. That's a very interesting one. I would love to get to that. Perfect. Thank you so much, Sujit. Thank you. All right. Any other thoughts, feelings, questions? No. Okay. Cool. So
Yeah.
thank you so much. So, these are certain valid thoughts that would come to our mind in such a time. And, we'll dwell deeper into it. Right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask a few more things, okay, before I jump back to the presentation. Uh, let's start with the internship experience that you would have had, right? Because usually they say that in your master's master's or an MBA, if you don't have a previous work experience, that's your first corporate exposure that you have, right? And when you have a corporate exposure virtually, and that's your first exposure, how did that go? I would love to hear from your experiences. How were those experiences, and what did you feel? Could it be different? Other than the fact that definitely in person, but could it have been different to enhance your learnings virtually?
Hello, ma'am. Bhavya this side.
Hi.
Yeah, ma'am. So I initially, when we started doing our internship, it was a very new and a different kind of experience, obviously, for all of us. It
Mhm.
was not normal to do a virtual internship during our MBAs, but as we progressed further in the internship, I think we were all able to grasp to that. Initially, I thought that the communication might be very difficult when
Hmm.
we are doing it virtually,
Hmm.
but then I think we went with the flow, and there were certain things I think I might not have learned if I would have done it physically. I think which
Of
I
course.
learned, which I did virtually. So maybe some tools or something like that I might not have used it when I was doing it physically. So
Okay.
that's something I experienced during my internship.
Okay. So at the end of it, did you feel, that you got the max out of this experience as you would have probably in person or maybe more?
Yes, I think I was able to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Okay. Would
Yeah.
any, yes. Is there anybody else who wants to share? Or
Hi,
should I give a few
hi, good
names?
afternoon, ma'am. I'm Nirbhay
Good
this side.
afternoon. Hi. Hi, Nandita.
Ma'am,
Tell me.
basically what I think is that if I would have done a brick and mortar kind of internship, I would
Hmm.
have wasted quite a lot of time over there as well,
Hmm.
just by doing some stuff which is required by certain HR professionals,
Hmm.
and maybe wasting some time while having some coffee or what kind of things what are there in the offices. But I think in this virtual setup, I was assigned tasks, and I had deadlines, and I needed to completed those tasks before those deadlines. So I think this was a much challenging experience compared to the brick and mortar office. But for that matter, I never been to a brick and mortar office as well. But still, in these circumstances, what I had, I made most of it.
Hmm. Brilliant. Brilliant. So good. So I think the fact that you feel you made the most of it is also a very important thing. So
Yeah.
good. Good to hear on that.
Ma'am, what I think was this internship, considering the situation, it was good. But in a virtual internship, we are not able to make networks or talk to people in an office environment.
Hmm.
Even if I don't have, I can make networks there. I can talk to people who even I don't know them. But in this thing, I am only contacting my mentor, and he's contacting me. So there is no third person in the company I'm talking to or meeting or anything. So like it's just a work specific thing, deadlines. It's mostly assignment. It's like a college MBA where we are given assignments, you have to complete it and send it. So that was something I was missing in a virtual networking and socializing
Hmm.
was not there.
Hmm.
So considering the situation right now, yeah, it's good, but if it's always virtual, then I would prefer it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I guess it seems more like that nothing's real. You're
Hmm.
living in a
Yes,
make-believe
ma'am.
world where people don't exist, and
Yeah.
we only see their avatars over here, just like right now.
Yeah.
You would not want to go on the camera,
Yeah.
so
Ma'am,
everything is like a
but ma'am,
dream.
it was a better option just going out there, ma'am, in a tough situation.
Yeah.
Still.
Of course.
Yep. All right. Anybody else who'd like to share?
Ma'am, I would like to add one more thing. I would like to counter Akash on
Hmm.
that we can't build relationships online. I
Hmm.
don't know, maybe I was lucky enough to work with a company working in the e-learning sector itself. So I was able to interact with a number of people online, virtually only, and make a number of connections,
Hmm.
maybe more than the ones I would have made physically. So that was a plus point for me. So I think, yeah, it proved to be an asset for me.
Lovely. Lovely. Thank you, Bhavya, for that.
Yeah. Welcome.
Great.
Right. One last check. Is there anybody else who would like to share their experience? Nope. Okay, perfect. So I'm just in the chat window, I've summarized the conversation of what all came up right now. We spoke about communication being different. We spoke about more tools being experienced. There was no wasted time on frivolous activities. Tasks and deadlines were more challenging. Someone felt networking and informal interactions were missing. There was maybe it was like an extension of assignments. It seemed like a surreal experience. Maybe the sector that the person was in or the organization had a role to play on it. Okay, so these are some of the feelings and thoughts, and all of you have had different experiences, and it's all perfectly valid. And each one has a different experience, and it's perfectly fine, right? Uh, at this moment, I'll share my experience as well. When I did my summer internship, um, so I got placed in a nice bank from campus and everything, one of the best banks that would visit the campus. And, I was about, so I, the highlight for my summer internship was I had 4 mentors that got changed in a period of 2 months. So, which essentially meant that when I started my summer internship, I was given a brief, to work on. I said, okay, fine. I started my work another 2.5 weeks into it. 2 weeks into it, I was told, okay, that my mentor is moving. So then they said, okay, we need to give you a mentor. Okay, it's our responsibility. We need to give you a mentor. So I was like, okay. So the person who was handling campus hiring actually became my mentor for the interim period. Then there was a new person who joined in, which was the starting of the second month. At that time, she came in and she said that, whatever you're doing is okay, but probably it's not the right approach to do it. We should look at it from a completely different perspective. So I went back to the drawing board and started work all over again. At the end, then came, uh, 2 weeks into the second month, the HOD of the department changed. Now, when the HOD of the department changed, my project obviously had to go to her for review. So I went up to her and I shared my project. And she tells me, why are we doing this? What is the need of doing this entire thing? So I was standing there baffled. What did I do in these 2 months? Right. And this is something which was beyond my control. I couldn't have imagined that I would end up meeting 4 different people to be my mentors. But then, what I learned and what I got out of it, now obviously initially it seems a bit overwhelming, but later, what I figured out was, uh, so the guy who was handling the entire campus program is like a mentor to me. And today, that was the network and the relation I formed with him. So today, if I need any guidance or anything, I can go up to him and I can ask him questions. And that's a relation that I got from that entire thing. Then I got to learn. So, I had to make an e-learning on something. So what I learned was that how does a e-learning actually happen? So that was my learning, and nobody could take that away from me. And no matter, how it went, how the project went was a completely different story. But at least from my side, I know I put in that effort and I figured out how do the different moving parts work of that. I got introduced to the ways of working in a larger HR ecosystem in an MNC. How is HR really functioning? Those were my learnings out of it, and that wasn't something that somebody taught me. It wasn't anything tangible really that anybody kind of sat down with me and said "aise hota hai," but it came more from an observation, really reflecting back on things and carrying what probably seemed like value add for me and the network I formed. So my batch of interns that I had along with me, all those people I'm still in touch with. And if I need any support, those are the people I go back to. Now you might be wondering, why am I sharing this story at this point in time, right? It seems very unattached. That was a very different scenario. Today is a very different scenario. The only thing is sometimes you don't have a control of the situation and environment you're put in, right? But how do you make the most of it is completely up to you. And that really becomes important, because the time that you have already spent, that is not going to come back, right? You've already put in that time. But what do you do after that, right? How do you build up on that experience is something that I want to dwell deeper on, because that will also help answer the question, that came up, that what is it that organizations look for, right? And what do you do with your experience till the time you're in college until you make that transition? What all can you do? Okay, so now I'm going to jump back to the presentation. Okay. uh,
I'll just cut you in between. I'm so
yeah,
sorry. This
no
is
problem.
one question again from the things that you've just pointed out. A
Yeah.
lot of our students, they're very apprehensive when they're opting for HR, because
Okay.
our choices at the time of choosing between these different fields is of course job oriented,
Yeah.
right? So they might have an interest in HR, but then again, they are apprehensive whether I'll be able to find a good job, a well-paid job, because we feel that in market, HR jobs are less, which of course is true, because the ratio between HR and the other jobs is actually slightly skewed to that. But they are concerned that the starting salary would be something else, and the requirement of HR is not there, so they become very very anxious about it. That I have interest in HR,
Mhm.
but then again I feel like I may not have a very good career in it, or it will or HR jobs only go to people who have a good experience. Like you should have at least 3 4 5 years of experience before you could actually start earning some real money for that matter,
Okay.
right? So if you can also address it from that perspective,
Sure.
because a lot of us our students are from the HR stream.
Okay, perfect. I think that's an area, where I can definitely talk about. So thanks for that question. All right. Cool. Thank you so much, Ruchi. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. Right. Present. Okay. So, we spoke about this, and, each one has different things that you would have probably liked. Some of you enjoyed it, some of you probably did not find it as enriching, but, everyone has a different journey. So, what can you do today? Let's talk about that, because that's what's in your hand and what you can really focus on. Okay. The first piece, I think, which I really like, is mastering your topic, right? End of the day, you need to know what your topic was all about, more from an internship perspective, or what your subject area is all about, right? Have you done enough amount of research on it? Have you spent enough time in doing projects, internships, blogging about it, observing, really taking in, how was the entire interaction? Like somebody mentioned the point about communication, right? Maybe that organization has certain informal structures of communication which are making it more effective. Maybe some organizations have more formal structures of communication that's making it worthwhile. So how do you really start taking that observation, taking your theory, and putting it together to really come up with what is the organization all about, right? And going deeper into your understanding. Engaging in debates as a group. Are you engaging in debates? I really like the fact that Bhavya said, okay, I have another, I have a counter to what Akash said. That is healthy debate, because once you start debating, obviously context is different, but she would have her context of summer internship, and Akash would have his context of internship from where that is coming, and obviously an individual need. But end of the day, that is healthy engagement, right? Doing that, how do you dwell deeper into it, build that perspective, right? Continuing your project. So this is more from your internship perspective as well, because in your summers you will get sorry, in your final placements you will get quizzed about your summer internship. So you need to be a master of your topic, so that any question that really comes your way, you, one, have heard about it, two, you have developed your perspective on. We'll come to that, right? This,
Ma'am,
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. I just had a question regarding this master your topic.
Yeah, sure.
Ma'am, there's the fourth bullet point which says blog and observations.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, I just wanted to know, like, if you're an HR personnel, you must have interviewed a lot of people. If I write blogs about what topics I like or my domain, any domain like finance, HR, any domain that I like, and I research about it and I'm putting blogs about it.
Yeah.
So, while the interview is getting conducted, while I'm getting interviewed, will it help if I mention that I've written blogs on the topics I like? Because I think blog word is more related to marketing, or probably, blog is like the creative edge you have. Is the recruiter really interested in the creative edge if they are hiring me as a financial analyst?
Okay. So now when you say blog is probably from a creative side, I think blogging is more about expressing yourself, and you can express yourself in any field. Okay. The reason why I say blog or observe, you can journal also, you don't have to post it out externally, but the intent is taking time to dwell deeper onto a topic, right? And why is that important? It's a good question that you've asked. And the third piece that you see about building perspective, right? You will never build a perspective if you've not gone deeper into a topic, right? So if somebody's interviewing you and you say that I blog about XYZ, the next question is likely to be, so, blogging is a word that we easily understand, but it's more about journaling and introspecting and going deeper. But I'm going to pick the situation where in a placement you say that I blog about XYZ topic, right? The next thing the person's going to ask you is, can you share a little bit more about what you write? Now, when you talk about what you write, that will actually, hint at what are the areas of interest for you, right? And then comes the thing of what is your perspective on a particular topic. So that's really the chain of thought that comes in when you start writing about something, going deeper into something. Even if you're not writing, that's not your medium, but are you going deeper into the subject? Are you reading more onto it? That is the crux and the underlying principle of why it's important to engage with the topic more. Does that answer your question?
Yes, you're actually saying that it will just show my perspective to the recruiter.
Yes. And what are your areas of interest and how much are you willing to commit to them? Are you going deeper into those subjects or not? Or are you only doing it at a superficial level, right? Being aware of a topic, then understanding it deeply, and then comes your perspective on it, right? You will never have a perspective on something which you have not gone deeper into.
Absolutely. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you. So now that we spoke about building a perspective and why it's important, I'm going to spend some time on that. So it's important while you're building your perspective, having your opinion. This is the time when you expose yourself to different areas. Your internship might be on one of the things, but your studies actually cover a whole gamut of topics, right? So how are you touching upon and going a little deeper than the surface in each of the topics? This is the time to start exploring, because you don't know what your placement role is going to be about today, right? You don't know what's going to come up. So having some information and some knowledge about different areas will help. Obviously have a few areas that you go deeper into. You cannot go deeper into everything, but have an idea about what's happening in your field, right? What's new in the industry, and what's your opinion on things and why, and being honest about, if you don't have an opinion on something and it's not an area of interest that you've gone deeper into, it's okay to share that as well, right? But going deeper, building that perspective, being in touch with what's happening is very important, and that's completely resting with you, right? Then I talk about building yourself, right? I'm going to come to that a little later. I'll touch upon build your network a little more. So, over here, while you appreciated your virtual internship experience, it seemed more like uh, it seemed more to the point, and you're not wasting time in frivolous activities and everything. That's great, right? What you need to do is also start building your network. So, there are a couple of ways that you can look at it. One is the formal channel, right? You had your mentor, you did a fabulous job. That mentor becomes your advocate and sponsor in the long run, right? Endorses the work that you did and promotes it, right? So that is the formal way of doing it. The informal way of doing it is probably, are you reaching out to multiple different people? Are you taking your interest areas further, right? So focusing on that as well is important, and it's a skill maybe not which will impact you right now so much, but in the long run this is something which will come handy. And the most important thing in this is being genuine and authentic, right? And you know uh, what I have seen in the recent years, or so as to say previous 5 years or something, uh, building your network has become synonymous with connecting with somebody on LinkedIn or being a Facebook friend or something of that nature. But are those genuine, authentic relations? Can these people vouch for you? Will they go ahead and endorse you at a later stage? That is your genuine, authentic network. Are you able to have deeper conversations with them? Are they able to guide you? Or do you trust them? Right? Those are genuine, authentic relations, not being LinkedIn friends with about being connected to about 5,000 people. That means nothing if you don't have your 10 advocates, your 10 sponsors who will endorse you for your work. So it's very important to know the difference and invest in those relations. And that investment needs to start early, right? As you start building your trust, your network starts to increase. So I think it's a very important thing, and especially for our generation and the times to come, the authenticity of relations is very important to remember, right? Uh, any questions? Okay, so I take that as no question right now. The other piece that I think is important is on building yourself, right? There's an element of when you build yourself, it's a fairly long journey sometimes, right? Building self-awareness, identifying what are the things you want to work on, and seeking help for that, right? Being always open to learning, getting in new ideas, and questioning and challenging yourself, not waiting for somebody else to come and throw a challenge at you all the time, but sometimes challenging yourself as well, getting out of your comfort zone, right? You might have a couple of topics that you think you're very comfortable with, and that's your area of expertise. Very good. But pick something which you have not done before and pushes you to really go beyond what you had imagined for yourself. Those are more things that you need to do at a personal level as you take on this journey, um, and really move further. I'm just going to pause. Any question? No. Okay, cool. And then we'll just quickly jump into talking about placements, right? Um, we spoke about the uncertainty that's there around how placements are being looked at. You don't know what's going to come in. So, I was looking at some figures, and it says that LinkedIn hiring is now increasing, right? Which is a clear it's a clear representation of how the industry is moving. Is it talking about overall as an economy? Probably no. It'll take a little longer time to come to par with pre-COVID times, but the change has started. And it's important to understand, initially when the entire lockdown situation started happening, which was around March, April, at that point in time, people did not know what to expect. Everybody thought that maybe few months, couple of months from now, things will be okay, we will head out, and we'll start seeing how the market's doing. But now the realization is there that probably till December or early next year things are not going to change. So how do you start responding? How do you start getting things back to normal, right? You would have heard stats to say that productivity has gone up. So I was reading something, it says that every worker is working now 1.3 times of what they used to do earlier, right? That's the increase in productivity number that's coming around. So things are getting back to normal. It's probably going to take a little bit more time, but that's the point where you need to be perseverant and continue on the journey, right? What we are talking about is how do you make the most of it and stay on track, right? um, this little diagram really talks about some of the industries and the sectors. There was a very important point that an edtech sector, you know was able to give a better learning experience, and the person was able to meet a lot more people. Probably why? Because that sector and that industry has been built to work in a digital environment, right? And this sort of a scenario only aided that business to really catapult and show its relevance to the entire ways of working. Now, it's very important for us to understand that as well as we make our decisions and choices. How is my industry going to be impacted, right? Uh, so if you look at, so high exposure really says where the impact has been pretty steep. Low exposure are those which continue as is, almost near pre-COVID kind of a situation. Moderate exposure is there is some impact, but there will be a swing up, and these are more, if you see, closely tied to the economic indicators. So yes, all economies have taken a hit, but there will be a resurgence on those. So this is more from your knowledge on the perspective that when you're making your decisions and your choices, is the organization that you're choosing, is it operating on the right model? Is it operating in the right sphere? You can't have an organization which will still think traditionally and continue to thrive. So I'm going to pick something like an apparel, right? Your brick and mortar stores, your retail is going to take time to really come by. But if you find an opportunity with a e-retailer in apparel space, which is actually investing in its digital footprint, that is probably something that will grow, right? So making sure of the organization and the business models that they're adopting, that is the takeaway that I want you to hold from this. Thinking more deeply about what is the business model. Okay. All right. And why, just another thing, it's important to keep sight, because what you're building is a career, not a job. So don't think of it as what am I going to do right now is what you're going to do at a later stage. Probably not. It's going to modify, but it's a career journey and it's going to be a long one. So don't feel too pressurized into thinking that, right now what you get is going to determine what happens in your career. You can be fairly successful in your careers even if you have a little bumpy start, and nothing to say otherwise, but be open to it. Okay, whatever may happen, you have a longer career journey ahead of you. It's not just about the job now. And something to think, and it's more from a perspective, honestly, is some of the job titles which are hot jobs today did not even exist 5 years ago. And it's very important to see the rise of digital, it's the rise of personalized spaces coming in. It's the rise of new pieces coming in, where you're talking about listening officer, you're talking about patient advocate, millennial generation consultant, elder care services consultant. So these are different times. Also, what Ingenious Minds is doing, those Faces is doing, that's also a slightly different space which probably did not exist earlier, right? So be open to change, right? So what I'm going to talk about now are some of the skills that I see you need to invest on as you go further, and these are absolutely agnostic of the area that you work in, which might be any function, whether it's HR, marketing, sales, anything. Okay, these are agnostic of that completely, but crucial in today's time, right? We know about digital skills as I was pointing out today. HR itself, okay, is high on using digital platforms for running operations, for communicating with potential hires, building an employer brand. All of those are based on your digital skills. So, how savvy are you? Are you able to navigate the entire ecosystem? Are you able to find right tools that will ease operations? So, HR today has transformed. I'm sorry, I'm giving an example more from an HR field. But today, the way operations is run is very different. You have tools which take care of processes, and HR will only jump in for more, uh, more conversations which need a human element. But other things have all become um, in an auto mode pretty much. So how are you really navigating that entire space? How comfortable are you on those is very important. Analytical skills. Suddenly you have a flux of data coming in from all sides. How are you using and interpreting that data? Can you find the overlaps between two data sets? I'll give you a very good example on this one. So up till recently, we would always look at attrition data and try to project what will be our attrition going forward. Now we introduced a system, which is based on artificial intelligence and machine learning, which actually has interactions with employees, and it asks about 5-6 questions at different touch points for the employees. So, for example, if the person got their mid-year appraisal done, it would ask them 4-5 questions and get get their responses. Now, basis analyzing the responses, the kind of words being used, the kind of rating that's being provided, keeping all of those in mind, it's now in a predictive model. It'll tell you these are the employees who are actively engaged, these are the employees who are actively disengaged. If you don't speak to these 2-3 people, they will definitely leave. And that's how we started changing the way HR is also interacting with employees. So now you can actually control your attrition and not just rely on a lag data or an indicator over there, right? The third that I see is adaptability. How open are you to the change? And creativity. How are you able to see patterns? How are you able to really, re-envision, simplify things? Simplification has become a very important thing today. Nobody wants to waste time doing um, 3 to 4 steps if something can be done in 1 or 2 steps. So, and that is again functionally agnostic. Everywhere, how can you simplify things for the end user, right? So these are some of the skills that I think become very important these days, and open to questions if anybody has before I move further. Okay, so I don't hear anybody, so I'm going to move further and then just pause for questions.
Okay, then I have a question. I'm so sorry.
Yes,
I
tell
keep
me.
coming in. I'm just looking at the role of research, because we as you know, I'm an assistant professor in the field of HR. So we at our level, we keep encouraging students
Yeah.
to take up more research based things or projects, or maybe just read more in research, so that you
Absolutely.
know what's happening. And the academia and industry connect usually comes from there.
Yep.
So someone or the other is.
That's
Just give me
okay,
one
Suchi. It's
second.
fine. Everybody is working from home. That's perfectly normal.
Yeah, I'm so sorry for that.
No, no, no. It's fine.
So I'm looking at this, that how do we compel the students to be more encouraging towards research? One of the skills today is that if we are looking at innovation, we are looking at creativity,
Yeah.
right? And in every field it is required, no matter where you are. So
Yes.
how is it, and without research that would become a bit challenge,
Yeah.
so students need to understand and put it all in a logical sequence, right?
Absolutely.
So maybe a research acumen, maybe they do not have it, but at least an inclination towards seeing research as a way forward also, and
Absolutely.
completely not disconnected from it.
Absolutely, Suchi. I'm 100% with you on that. I think, the part where I spoke about mastering the subject, research is very important. That's the step one to building any in depth knowledge of any subject. I think
Yeah.
100% with you on that. And for anybody to build a perspective, it has to come from research. There's no other way you can have a perspective of anything if you've not done your homework. So, Suchi, 100% with you. Um, the ways we can do it is, I think, thinking more from, if you're talking more of application based projects and learnings, um, asking for the student's perspective is very important. And going further and deeper into applications would
Right.
definitely the way ahead.
Because
Because,
you were talking about analytics, and that's the way forward.
yeah,
And using analytics with research is
yeah,
something which is happening all over the world.
yeah,
And HR is, nonetheless, we are, with in the stream of HR, we are with full force. We are moving ahead in that.
yes, yes.
So
HR has pretty much transformed the way it was a few years back. Today, operations teams will be smaller. You will have a big analytics team that would support the decision making. And yeah, it's completely changed the way we were looking at things. Great. So I'm just going to take few. I'm going to take few minutes. I'm going to quickly wrap up, the few pieces that I have, and I want to open the floor to discussion because I think there are a few questions that we need to answer. Right? Okay, so I'm going to move faster on this. This was just an example. Key takeaways: make the most, invest in skills of research and prepare. So, Shuchi, yes, reiterating researching and preparing yourself, investing in yourself. I think these are very crucial for anybody in today's day and age. Um, yep. This is what we intended to do. I want to do it. How do I do it? I'll try to do it. These are some of the things. Opening to Q&A, but I'm just going to touch upon two of the questions that I had received. One was, how do you find your interests and skills? Okay. Now, there is no right or wrong way to do this. It is a purely individual's journey on how they do it and what really resonates with them. Something that I have started finding meaning in, is Ikigai as a principle, which has started coming up, in which talks about more what is the your purpose. It's more defined as purposeful living. Now, purposeful living, what you see on the left hand side is, if you were to look at it more um, from what you do perspective, this is a good criteria to say, what do you love, what are you good at, what the world needs, what will you be paid for, and then kind of finding the overlap. You might be in different buckets at different stages, but that's one way to look at it. The other thing, this on the right hand side, this is more from a life kind of a perspective, and this is what it actually really translates into. So, this is something you can dwell into, but I think it's an individual journey. You'll need to reflect, pause, take time for yourself to see what works for you. And there is no way you're going to get it the right first time. There will be a lot of trial and errors. So be open to experimenting. You might pick up something you're not comfortable with. Um, And then, you might succeed, you might fail, but you learn from that and you move ahead to your next challenge, right? um, okay, now quickly moving to the second question that I had received was around resumes. What is a resume? It's a most effective written representation of yourself, is how I see it, because that's the first document that gets through. um, what are the things to include in that? It definitely needs to be concise and easy to read. So, you usually say a one pager is enough, sometimes maybe two, but don't go beyond that. Highlight the things you want to draw attention to. Um, then definitely talk about your USPs if there's a passion that you have, right? And it's something that makes you unique. Make sure you're putting it over there. Don't think that, oh, maybe it's not professional enough or any of those things. Put it there. It makes who you are and it makes you stand out. Okay. The third thing that I talk about is your evidence of impact. So, many times people will say, I did this, right? But when you say, I did this, I achieved XYZ results by doing this, then it talks about very clearly why you did it, what was your measure of success on that. So how are you evidencing for impact in your resume makes a difference. The other thing that we look at, while looking at the resumes is the progression, the growth the individual is making. If somebody's been doing the same thing for 4 years or 5 years and not really challenging themselves or growing in scale or growing in the complexity of what they do, then that person has stagnated, right? So you have to make sure that you're seeing that progression, that growth, where there is some change that the individual is bringing for themselves and growing further, right? Then iterations, relevance, you will never, don't try to make your resume a day before submission. Get started on it well in advance, because you will not get it right. You will need to do multiple iterations to have it right. The other piece that I want to highlight is the relevance. Job, highlight the thing that you want to draw attention to. For example, if you're trying to hire somebody for a sales role, highlighting their experience in vendor management only will have no relevance. So making sure your resume talks to the role that you're applying for, highlight the relevant things. All right, now I'm going to pause quickly. Sorry that just overshot the time, but now I'm open to questions. I'm conscious of that. Please ask your questions. I'm just going to quickly run through the chat window, also try to take the questions that have already come up. Roshali, is that cool? We
Yes,
have some
of
time?
course. Yeah. Oh, we have all the time.
Okay. Okay,
Hi,
perfect.
ma'am.
Hi.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
I'm Akash. This is Akash.
Yes,
So
Akash.
I just wanted to ask. You said just networking was also important. There's formal and informal way. So how can we a formal way is like LinkedIn and everything we can press to connect and everything. But if I want to actually connect with a specific target segment, like if I want to connect with just HR professionals or somebody from marketing domain only. So
Okay, so I think Akash, the first step towards connecting with anybody is also why do you want to connect with them, right? And why would they want to connect with you? Being a LinkedIn connection has zero relevance in today's.
apart from the formal way, how else can I net?
No. So when you
Okay, ma'am.
reach out to someone, right?
Yes, ma'am.
What is it that you're reaching out for? You have to be very clear in that, and you have to communicate that very clearly to the other person, right? If you're looking for some insight, so a good conversation starter or a good starting point for your engagement with anybody would be probably a topic of expertise for the individual, right? In which you can actually learn something and they can actually share something with you. Otherwise, knowing somebody, being on the connection list there is no recall to that, right? If you have a topic, you're researching about it, and you think there is a expert in this field who can lend value and help you build your perspective, please reach out to them. Start engaging in those conversations and having more meaningful conversations with them would be my recommendation on really building your network.
Yeah.
Also from a perspective that you had your summers, etc., right?
Yes, ma'am.
Use that network very well. Speak to them about what you're working on and where would you want them to help you out. That's another way to approach. That would be my
So,
suggestion.
ma'am, so this apart from LinkedIn, what else, what else informal ways can we use? Like, I don't, if I don't know a person, like if I don't know a specific HR professionals,
Hmm.
but I want to, apart from the LinkedIn side, LinkedIn is connect something that many people, many HR professionals won't even respond to because they might get many requests like that.
Yeah.
So, what else can be done in order to connect with them? Or
Akash, answer my question. Why do you want to reach out to HR
so if I have something I want to discuss with them or talk to
Hmm.
them about,
Hmm.
so if I want to specifically ask them what is the pain point in something, if
Hmm.
I, so I want to, if I want a data, collate a data of specific points. So if
Hmm.
I, so how can I reach out them? So if I send them a normal request, they might not accept it. But if there are any other ways where we can actually collate such a data, like what is whatever we want to ask them, if they
Hmm.
would be interested in doing it, then how can we contact
Sure.
them or network with them?
Sure. So I think, Akash, very important. See, LinkedIn is one where get you get pinpointed individuals who are experts in fields. That would be more if you're reaching out to somebody specific in mind and you want to pursue that. But if you're just looking at it from a data building perspective, or from a survey perspective, what stops you from posting it out publicly, right? What stops you over there? You have every organization, they have their contact IDs usually mentioned over there as well, right? You can do some cold calling, you'll need to do that. Plus there are certain specific forums that exist, right? I get involved in those specific forums. You have SHRM if it's an HR thing, then you have a bunch of others. For different things you have multiple forums. Start getting involved in those, seeing where the industry is going, who are the people who are members of it, is it a credible platform for you to learn. um, Start reaching out to that network. So that's another way to do it, right? But if you are researching something and you need information, nothing stops you from posting it out publicly. You will be surprised at the responses you might receive. You will be surprised at the kind of help people want to give to students, especially these
Yeah.
times.
Uh, Ma'am, related to what Akash had asked, actually, the thing is, me and Akash and few of our friends, we are working on a startup idea. So we
Okay.
basically want a perspective from an HR. So we are looking forward from people who can give us the insights on the idea and probably help us, improvise. And that
Okay.
is why we are looking at the pain points which our startup idea would give solution to.
Okay.
So, ma'am, we can get in touch with you through LinkedIn, right? Can you just help us out on how an HR would react to such a solution?
Sure, definitely, Shirley. I'll help out with that. Uh, I think, even if it's not me and it's somebody else you want to reach out to, and you share with them that this is the context of why I'm reaching out to you. Will you be okay to mentor me, guide me? I think when you put it out very clearly, it's only then that you will understand the interest of the individual. But if you were to take an approach of sending a LinkedIn request first, waiting for the person to accept or reject, and then coming to the point of what you really want, you've lost a lot of time, right? And you've lost the person's interest probably by waiting for that and reaching that. If it's a need for you, reach out to multiple people, and also don't hedge your eggs in one basket, as we've read since we were kids. reach out to
Yes, ma'am.
different people who will give you that feedback. So make sure you're building that entire ecosystem for yourself as well.
Yes, ma'am. We are trying to. We were just curious if you would help us out in
Yeah,
this as well.
sure, definitely. I would be happy to help out. But
Thank you, ma'am.
for the larger group, not just about this idea, not about me, but in general, how are you approaching things is
And
something.
Shirley and Akash, I would suggest to you grab hold of Kiran right here
Yeah,
and take word from her, and she will connect you to her network. And
yeah,
that's how usually networking is done, right?
yep,
So it's just not that she's going to give you data from her opinion, her company, but she is going to help you in connecting you with other places. And that's why career cafes are the best places, because I have
yeah,
put a lot of effort into getting such resourceful people, even if they are not from that HR background. They will connect you to the right people in their companies, and
exactly.
that's how that chain is going to get bigger and bigger for you. So grab hold of ma'am right here, take her email ID and whatever that you can. Doesn't matter LinkedIn or not, keep shooting emails to her. She'll get tired and respond to you.
Yeah, perseverance is another key factor.
Yes.
But I think, Shuchi, you made a very relevant point. Guys, it's not just about that one person.
Yeah.
There will be other people also out there who can help you. And if you have an idea, use these platforms publicly. Okay, don't, you will be surprised at the number of people who actually jump in to help you. And yeah, I have seen that happen. So I'm very uh, yeah, last year I did a industry event on women in technology, and when we started out we were not sure, but when we started posting it out and putting it out there, we got so much overwhelming response that we managed to open different different city chapters to it at a later date, just by the fact that we posted about it and people were interested from a concept level. So if your concept is appealing and the problem you're solving is relevant, people will turn up. So yeah, just a little yarn on that, but yes.
And I would always put this thing also out there, people, and Kiran can back me up on this, that uh, campus placements are not the only way to get the jobs, right?
Yes.
The more you interact with people, the more you make your networks, right, through these sessions. You are showing them your work, your actual work of what you're good at. That's your skill set. That is what sells, right? That is what you're showcasing anyways in the campus placements. So you connect to these people, you start working with them, they see a lot of potential in you, and they will offer you something to work with.
Yeah.
That is not something which is uncommon. Trust me,
Yeah.
it will happen. It's
And
just
maybe
that,
it's not right now, maybe it's even 5 years down the line when they have the
yes,
right opportunity.
exactly.
Somebody will recall, okay, I remember working with this kid who was very
Yeah.
enthusiastic, passionate, had ideas about something or the other, and they will reach out. I still go back to some of my colleagues and some of my team members whom
Yes.
I know at that time displayed the right skill set and the right
Hmm.
behaviors that I would want in my team today.
Yeah,
So I
and
will
I've
go
heard
back.
so many stories of people saying that this person was hired at this particular forum where I met him or
Yeah.
her. I saw them presenting, I heard their ideas, and they walked up to us, and this was really interesting. So we thought of engaging with this person more, and that's how the networking actually helps.
Yeah. And also, Shruti, thank you so much. I'm just building on this conversation.
Please go ahead.
Another thing that, sometimes don't wait for sometimes we wait for the right job to appear or get posted, right?
Mm.
Sometimes that will not happen because that job hasn't even been envisaged today, right?
Right.
If you read about an organization that you feel passionate about the work that they're doing, you believe in the concept that they're putting forth, right? And you believe you have some way to contribute to that, go ahead and reach out and say, I read this concept, I read what you do, and this is what I can do for you. Do you think this is something we can pursue, right?
Mm.
Start engaging in those conversations. That's your starting point, because
Exactly.
waiting for the right opportunity is very rare, and it happens to very few of us that the right opportunity just comes knocking on the door. You need to start building ways for it to happen to you. It's
And I
not going to
think that
happen.
as per how the process of recruitment goes, ideally, if we look at the book, don't go by that
Yeah,
there's going to be an opening, there's going to be a process of recruitment, uska JD aayega. No, not at all. A lot of times there's an open position in the company, but the company is not even bothered to hire at that time.
yeah,
Someone else is doing that job. The job is getting done, so they don't want to hire anyone at that time, specifically at this point of time.
yeah,
They would want people to multitask. So if you are in touch with these people, then yes, your chances of being chosen for that job are really high.
yeah. Also, I think it's not just about the current getting your first job. Also, even later in your career, okay, so I have if you see on my LinkedIn, which is very obvious, there are certain roles I spent little amount of time in, and then I moved on to something else. As per my company policy, right, if I were to stick by the book, I wouldn't be allowed to do that. But there were certain times where I felt I could add value to what was needed at that point in time from the organization, and the organization then respects that. When you show up, put your hand up and say, I want to take on this challenge and I want to do this, organizations give you that opportunity as well. And that opportunity will not come if you don't raise up your hand. Sometimes it'll get shot down, which is okay, but sometimes you'll also get lucky at it. So, you know being persistent in what you want is important, and really making it happen for yourself is what you need to be focused on. So go after the right experiences, no matter how they're landing up, just ethical ways, but yeah, go after those experiences for sure.
Yeah. And
Right?
I mean, on that note, just out of curiosity, I also had this question: like, what actually makes you most desirable for an employer? Like you mentioned, that just you know stand by yourself and just ask the employer, okay, this is the kind of challenge I want to take up, or this is something that I would really love to contribute. So what other things does, because these people are now going to apply for new jobs and are
Yeah.
going to sit for their placements. So what would be an effective way or an effective let's say method for them to become more desirable to the
Or
to
maybe, just tell
yeah,
them how to crack the HR round
yeah, probably, yes.
for the
Sure,
placements. The most primary thing is HR, and the
Yeah,
last one to meet is also HR.
yeah,
sure. So I think, now there are certain basics that all of us look for,
mm-hmm.
and then there is an additional thing to look after, which is your organization need. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so from an individual, what would I expect while recruiting? I would expect the person knows what they're talking about. So your entire piece on mastering your topic, having your own perspective, very important. I don't want somebody who has just bookish knowledge. I want somebody who can apply those concepts, who can think for themselves. If they were landed in a situation, how would they react and why? What is the logic behind it? So very important. How are you looking at things logically? um, the third thing that stands out to me is you know about how confident you are about your line of thought and your subject matter. And the confidence that you portray over there is not dependent on how much you have read or how much you know, but stems from the fact of how well you've understood the concept level of things, right? Why are you doing what you're doing? Very important. And one more thing is the basics. In my terminology, I've started terming this as basics for an individual, which would be how authentic are you, right? How open and honest are you in your conversations? Because people can see through things, okay? When you sit for your placements and you're meeting people, these are people who've been doing this in and out for their lives now, almost, right? You'll have people with 10 years experience, 15 years experience, 20 years experience landing up over there. So if you're faffing, trying to think you can wing it or you can faff your way through something, that's not going to work really to your advantage. And if you think that, uh, you can just get away with saying the right things, or what are the prescribed answers to a particular question, probably not. The more honest and authentic you are, the better it is. If you don't know something, you don't know something. Be open to admit and say that I don't know XYZ. This is something I will learn and come back, which is okay, which is perfectly fine. It's acceptable. We don't expect kids to know everything about everything under the sun, right? You've learned some things, you're an expert in certain things that you feel passionate about, and that's fine. But be
Perfect.
honest and open in your conversation. So I think these are the things that I personally look for. But what becomes important is the role and the organization also that you are interviewing for. So be in the know of that as well. Because certain roles or certain organizations value a certain trait more than somebody else might value something else, somebody might value something else, and that's perfectly fine, right? So be aware of what is it that they need, and also ask yourself, is that something that resonates with me? Would I want to be in this situation or not, right? So it's very important. Otherwise, even if you land that job at a later date, you will continue to wonder, why am I doing what I'm doing? So the values have to resonate with you, is how I see it in the long term, probably.
Yeah,
But in the short term, sometimes we kind of overlook this. But
of course. Yeah,
definitely see how the organization values are resonating with you,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Great. I
All
mean,
right. Roshali, sorry, you have a
yeah,
question, or I just wanted to go to the questions in the chat.
yes,
I don't
of
want to
course.
leave them
Yes,
unanswered,
yes.
right? Shuchi asked the question about the pressure of time, having time at hand and investing into certifications and courses. Uh, I think, certifications and courses show a level of interest and intent of going deeper, but the real learning will happen when you can start applying that learning, right? So my suggestion stands in terms of get your hands on any projects that you can, unpaid internships that you can pick up virtually, uh, maybe a research project that you can do which helps you go deeper into the subject. But a certification or a course only shows intent. Until and unless applied, it will not fly, right? Until and unless it's a technical skill like a coding language, probably, or an analytics tool in which that certification will hold a real value, right? So that was that. Then I wanted to address the topic of choosing HR as a career path. Um, yeah. So uh, so HR as a career path, HR is transforming, honestly. HR, if you were to look at the mass roles that exist in HR, then probably this was a right understanding to say that, you won't get paid as much, you won't have the same kind of career trajectory. But if you are able to carve a niche for yourself, right, then HR gets paid as much as any other role in the industry today. So, yeah, I would say just figure out your niche in that area. Today, if you have HR analytics skills, you'll be paid a lot. So, there is no differentiation between a marketing analytics person and an HR analytics person if you know your skill set, and that's what differentiates you. If you want to be even in recruitment, I would share in recruitment, right? If you were to be just a normal recruiter, yes, probably you will be paid just like everybody else. But if you were a specialized recruiter for technical roles, for digital roles, or for high-end leadership roles, you will be paid at par with anybody else. So where are you building your specialization matters. And while you need all kinds of all kinds of people to do different kinds of roles, taking nothing away from that.
Yeah.
But if your consideration is the comp, that won't happen, right?
Thank you. Sounds.
I am done with the questions. I am with Roshali now. It's over to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. So, any other questions for Kirandeep? Any of the students who want to ask any last question, maybe, and then we can wrap up the session.
Yes, sorry. I think we overshot the time.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Okay.
Okay.
Ma'am, can you share your email ID with us?
Yeah, sure. I think Roshali can connect us.
Of course. Of
Yes,
course.
ma'am.
I
Thank
will.
you, ma'am.
Definitely. Great. But on that note, I think it's time to wrap up the session. Thank you so much, Kirandeep, for joining us today. It was a lovely session. It was lovely meeting you, meeting you over Zoom. And yeah, it was really insightful. I hope students were able to understand and learn a lot of things from you and understand how, how they need to manage their skills, upskill themselves, and actually use the right skills for the right kind of jobs that they're looking for. So yeah, thank you so much for joining in. Have a
Thank you
great
so
day,
much.
everyone. Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much,
Kiran.
guys. It was
Thank you, Kiran.
lovely catching everybody today. Let's stay connected.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone. Have a
you. Bye-bye.
great day ahead. Yeah. Bye.